took a
today
shower.
on election
How are
day.
you next to
We had
her?
to break into the public
You
offices
did?
just to
Mhm.
even meet. So,
It was great.
I'll call this meeting to order, and I'll ask for approval of the minutes of the October 15th meeting.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Rhett, seconded by Joe. Any additions, corrections? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Do you have a copy of the?
Yeah.
This is the one's got your name on it.
Thank you, Red.
Welcome.
Okay, so,
Thank Robin.
we'll start out with because we know that we're gonna talk about the housing policy today. We know we're going to talk about the housing study that we're about to embark on. And we're gonna talk about projects that are out there that, want help, have help from us. But I guess, did everyone receive Anna's email to us, to all board members? Norm, did you see that?
Yes.
Okay. So, do we wanna Robin, you wanna just go through the highlights of that letter?
Well, yeah, I was thinking, I don't want to, it's long. We were talking about this through yesterday.
Pick up on the
Yeah, I think I
highlights.
was gonna focus on the 3 bullets of what she's recommending.
Well, with her background in that, I think
Second
it's
page.
helpful. In that she has done a lot of research, what are the other
Right,
IPAs
right.
doing? There's a review of what our housing policy was and
Yep.
what's being considered as, going back to, keeping it at 20% rather than back to 10. The importance of making sure that the housing needs of the community are supported and are attracted to more enterprise business here, like Fairlife and others, where there's workforce housing available.
Mm-hmm.
Should we get a little bit ahead of that? So those are some of the things that she identified in her conversations with the other IDAs. Some will just provide mortgage sales and mortgage recording tax benefits as opposed to what am I thinking?
Pilot.
The pilot or the
Property tax.
property tax.
Mm-hmm.
So, but you can go on to those 3 points if you want, Robin.
Yeah, so Anna's recommendations for this committee today, I'm going to read them and then we'll tackle them individually. And actually we have a 4th that kind of flows. 1, temporarily reset the affordable set aside to 10% as originally contemplated in COMIDA's policy, pending the results of a comprehensive housing market study. This will allow stalled projects to move forward and provide flexibility for data-driven decision-making in the future. 2, remove the affordable set-aside requirement for applications seeking only sales and use tax or mortgage recording tax exemptions. These projects often serve different purposes than those seeking pilot agreements and may not require the same level of affordable housing inclusion. 3, commission a housing study as soon as possible to thoroughly analyze Monroe County's housing market and economic factors driving supply and demand. The study will help us craft a policy that balances the county's housing needs with support for economic growth and job creation. And the 4th one that kind of isn't written here but kind of goes along with everything is to just have a discussion on what the income range, the AMI range should be. So I think what I like to do is start with number 3 because we can tell you that the housing study was put out there officially last week.
Good.
It's been advertised.
The DNC, RBJ, and
Daily Record.
Daily Record.
We sent it to 3 firms that we know have done these in the past. We heard back from one of them already, who already asked a question. I know
Norm had some
Norm,
people.
you said you had some people.
Yes.
We would
Send
love
it
to
to
get those names,
Okay.
and we can send it directly to them.
All right.
How we do it, just so you know, is you have to request it from us. It's not just out there in the world, because that way we know
Who has it?
and can keep track of. So when there's updates, if for any reason there's updates, so this person asked a question, everyone's going to receive the answer to the question. So everyone is on the same
Okay.
level playing field with the same information. So that's where we are right now, and I think they were due November 22nd or something like that.
21st or 22nd.
And then we'll reconvene this committee.
What is the date?
I think it was,
They're due they're due the 22nd, Friday the 22nd.
And that's basically just their,
22nd?
that's their response to the RFP.
correct,
That's November 22nd.
yes.
Okay.
And then we will reconvene this committee in beginning of December to go through those.
In regards to the study, I think I talked about it at the last meeting, but I would like to see it moved along quicker versus, I mean, somebody made a comment, it could go 6 months, 9 months.
Yeah, so we took any sort of time parameters from our end out of it, and we're looking to see what they come back with.
So that is one of the grading criteria,
Yeah.
is how quickly can you get it done?
Yeah.
We will score on that.
Yeah, just to keep you guys, give you some information that I found out, so Westchester did one, they got it back in 90 days. That's much more densely
Oh,
populated
Rachel
than
was
we are.
trying to get that, she wasn't having any luck getting a copy of that.
That was 90 days after approving them to do the study.
Correct, once the contract was signed, they got it back in 90 days.
Joe, I think that's a good turnaround,
Yeah.
good time
Yes.
frame. But here's my criteria. It's done right and something that's useful to us.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's
So-
gotta be done correctly,
Yeah, so I mean.
thoroughly.
Yeah, no, we need something that's gonna be of value to us as we make our decisions. So we can push it to get it done quickly, but if it's a bunch of gobbledygook, it doesn't help us, it doesn't help us, that's my, slant on it.
At one point, I had heard that these things could, take 12 months, 18 months, and
Yeah.
could be really thorough.
If we were doing a
But that would
comprehensive
really- that would be
Monroe
sort of
County
shutting
housing
us
study,
down, I think.
it would take that amount of time, and that's not really what we're looking for.
Exactly. Just a current market study, and then how
And to help-
responsive are we to
Yeah.
current conditions?
And then, I think along the way, we might wanna have some specific recommendations, basically on some of like the percentages that we're talking about. We need to,
Right.
we need to see that, what does that do? How does that impact the business?
Right.
And the performer of the businesses in this area, and how does that impact everyone else? So I think it's important that we have good data and good information on how we proceed. Because, I mean, I'm not gonna tell you about what I used to do, but, there were, you get the good information, and it gives you that baseline of how you proceed.
Where do we go to get that? Would the city already have done a study on that?
No, I think what they have to go, I mean, whoever gets the study, they have to go and
They
take.
would provide that.
They have to go and find information from all the
Okay.
public records, interviewing people, and just gathering that information.
makes sense,
And,
yeah.
and looking at, guess what? Syracuse, what are they doing with Micron? And this area, what are they doing there? What are they doing? I know, because I've been to different conferences, I know in Tennessee, along what you're talking about, Joe, the IDA and the Housing Authority worked in conjunction with the municipality, and where they're building these new houses over there, they're renovating these houses. The roads were horrible. You can't get public transportation to them. So they worked in conjunction, and they built, not only did they do the housing, they built the infrastructure out. But I'm an infrastructure guy, so I'm gonna shut up on that. So, but I think it's important that we get good information.
And I think the data that we get from the study will provide clarity,
Right.
and then we'll know where the holes are, and then we'll know what to do.
And if we can get a comprehensive study in 90 days, so be it, as
Be
long as the
fantastic.
quality is there. Yeah.
Would you want there to be specific items that we want included that would be unique to what we're trying to do?
I think the RFP you put out,
Well, it's out there already, so.
I think it was pretty specific, based off of what we need. And I think it'll provide all the information we need. It'll be fine.
And then if there's specific questions or comments that we may have to do an addendum to it, you know, we said, guess what? We're not gonna be, stuck to that specific study and all the deliverables from that, and we'll be flexible enough to make adjustments as needed. That's what I know we've done in the past. Mr. Superintendent,
What's that?
no comment?
No.
So there.
Cause he's done these in the
So the
past.
RFP, it's out.
It's out.
And we'll
You
get it
know, I
back.
think
Yep,
Yeah,
And then
you do your study
yeah,
Good job.
Yep.
Thank you.
and let it guide your decision.
Okay.
yep. Yep.
So then that takes us to the bigger question about the reset.
The bigger question, you wanna tackle that one first, that's the reset to go back to 10%.
Until we get the study.
Right.
And decide which direction we're going.
Right, for the final.
I know Norm was, he was pretty adamant about this
I was,
when we passed, the 20%.
it's, I like having good information and data to make an informed decision, that's all. And I don't want us to look like we're wavering and back and forth and not knowing what we're doing. But if we can, I'm okay with the reset if we can articulate that in a way in which we're not
Yeah.
looking goofy.
But let me, I'll share my thoughts with you. Go ahead, Rhett, you started first, go ahead.
So, I wasn't on the committee, when we went from the 10 to the 20. Everybody was in the room. There didn't seem to, it got voted, I guess to make a long story short, if we can get an RFP done in 90 days, why would we want to change? When the board voted for the 20, we can make adjustments. When the board's got the flexibility, if somebody comes to us, we can, we're willing to listen and, it's kind of like the Portland Avenue. So, but I just think, and Norm, the comment that you made will always stick with me, that, oh, here we go, we're going from here to there and then back again.
Study, he said.
So,
I said, I don't know if you were there for it, but I said back when we were debating this, we should wait for the study to make an informed decision and leave it as it is until the study's done. That's what I said. I said back in October, and I use this for I'm dating myself, I don't know if you guys are old enough, for my Rowan and Martin Lappin days.
Oh,
Pickle.
Yeah.
That's a Pickle Finger to Fate Award. Do you remember that? Does anyone, come on, does anyone remember that? Rowan and Martin Lappin?
Love that show.
Come on,
Love that
come
show.
on, you gotta remember that. So
Yeah.
that was an award that they used to give us, so that's
Terrible, I
when
remember that.
that's when the term came up, when I said pickle. So I just wanted to make sure that, whatever we do, we don't look silly.
Yeah. So, I'll share this with you. I don't like the optics, number one, of
The flip-flop.
the flip-flop at all. I think we look incompetent, and I don't like that at all. And whether everybody knows it or not, Jake put a lot of thought and time. I put a lot of thought and time into it. I don't know if you thought it through, and you thought it through. That was not, we woke up one morning and said, let's do this. That was, when we did the 10, we contemplated the 20 then, 4 years ago, and we didn't. We did the 10 and let's see how it goes. If there's more affordable housing getting built, if we think we need more affordable housing getting built, then we'll raise it and we'll try to push it in that direction. So I don't think it was rushed or a bad decision. I think it was well thought out. I think it was done over time. I think it was a good decision. I would not be in favor of unwinding it for both of those reasons. Now, when we get the study back, if the study shows us something different, then I don't think you look incompetent making a change then. I don't think we would, but listen, stranger things have happened. Let's see what the study shows, and then we can make a decision. Now, as far as item two has a much less negative impact on middle class and lower class income people in the county from a property tax standpoint than item one does. So I would be, and again, I'm just thinking out loud, I would be okay saying that we could use a 10% set aside for people that want just mortgage tax and sales tax. Do a 10% set aside. If you want more than that, if you want property tax, then you do a 20% set aside. I think if we did that, you're giving developers that had this 10% in their head, you're giving them something for that 10% without punishing your tax base, which is not something I want to do. Nor do I think we should do that. Collectively, I think, look, we're here. I can tell you why I'm here, and I'm sure you're going to agree. I'm here not to do anything self-serving whatsoever. I'm here because I want to do anything we can do to help create jobs. Anything that creates jobs is a good thing. Especially large quantities of jobs, blue-collar jobs, I think is very, very, very needed. Anything that we can do to help low-income and middle class be able to afford where they are is very, very important. And how we do that is when you give out a property tax abatement, you affect all of those people. So we just have to be cautious of who we give that out to. And we have to make sure that the scale weighs in. So when you take something off the tax rolls for 10 years, the benefit should be a lot of jobs feeding into the county, right? And those people will feed into the tax base, so it evens out. You're not negatively impacting somebody. But when you take a $2, $3, $4, $5, $10, $20 million project that has 3 employees and you take it off the tax roll, you go like this.
Right.
And that's been done a lot. And I'm not throwing rocks. I'm saying it in the most respectful way because I don't think it was done intentionally at all. I just think it's an effect of trying to do something good to get development. I think that's an effect of where we are. And I think our property taxes are completely higher than they need to be.
If we were to leave it, just looking at the other side of that coin, at the 20%.
Which we could do that.
And just do projects that, would provide the sales and mortgage and reporting tax benefits. Does that still, which we're talking about doing, does that still mean that there are a lot of other projects out there that are stalled because of the 20% and property tax benefits?
Isn't that what's...
I'm asking,
I guess I'm confused on the question, I'm
Right.
sorry. So,
I think what she's saying is, how many projects are in the pipeline, and you correct me if I'm wrong, how many projects are in the pipeline that got pulled from the pipeline when we went from 10 to 20?
7.
I know of 2.
we know of 7.
but if we went with this new
Gotta speak up.
policy
I
of
don't like stepping on
no property tax impact,
Mm-hmm.
does that help a couple of
Yes.
projects?
Yes.
But there's still then 5 or so in the line,
Potentially.
thinking that we might go back to the 10%.
Wait, so I just
I know.
to clarify for me, so you're talking about if they want a pilot, it's 20% set aside. if they want a pilot and a sales and mortgage recording tax. If they just want a sales and mortgage recording tax, you're saying they should have a 10% set aside?
That's what I'm saying. I'm saying you could have two. You could say, if you wanna come in for a property tax abatement and sales tax and mortgage tax, it's a 20%, which we already voted in.
And I think,
Wait for the study, and then if we wanna change it, we can. If
and I
not, we
think
can
that
leave
that's
it.
what Jay talked about when we went from 10 to 20, that there would be flexibility.
Correct. And then,
And that's what this number 2 is all about.
and if somebody comes with mortgage and sales tax only, then they could apply with a 10% set aside.
So the staff perspective is, you wanna keep it at 20% for a pilot all day long, that's fine. That's fine. Wait for the study. What we would like a study to show us is like, where is the need? And then have different type of real property tax abatements that would, a better schedule
Yeah.
to
Different
entice,
incentives for
or to
different-
entice what the need is. I would love to see that, higher aggressive abatement schedules for what's really needed out there.
But when
And
the
if it
study
is,
comes,
yes.
and I'm gonna tell you, a lot of projects that we get, depending on where they're built, and if they're more affordable, the 20% isn't gonna matter. Cause that's the kind of projects we should be doing, like with that
Right,
couple
right,
brought in.
right.
So that becomes unconsequential completely.
Exactly, but staff is kind of adamant on this point with the sales and mortgage tax only of not having a set aside, and it's not because I care about the developer or anything like that, we have no teeth in it over 10 years.
Sales and mortgage tax is done in a year or two.
Once it's built, we're out of it, we're out of the deal. We have nothing to
So
stand
they're
there.
saying you can do that and 10%.
No, I'm saying no.
No, what she's saying is, once you give a mortgage tax and sales tax, if they agree to 10%, right? And then they don't do the 10% in year 3,
We don't know.
you gave it to them. And honestly, I'll just give you my opinion on it. So if I'm a developer and I come to you and you give me mortgage tax and sales tax, and I agree to a 10% set aside, I'm gonna do the 10% set aside out of the gate. If I unwind that, you end up exactly where you are anyway. But at least you're trying to hold them to a standard to help.
Well, then is it best efforts?
Well, no, I don't think you make best efforts. I think you leave it in there, and because at the end of the day, at least we are making an effort to help low income and middle class get 10% of that project. And then if the developer is unethical and does the wrong thing and says, hey, we're not doing it, and we find out that they didn't do it, at least then our teeth are, most developers come back again and again. And if a developer comes back and did something unethical, we're gonna say, okay, well, you didn't honor it before, why would we think you're gonna honor another project?
So my question would be though, like, what is our liability if we have something that we made them agree to that we are not actually gonna hold them to? Like,
But you are gonna hold them to it.
but if they don't do it, like, what is our liability? And
Well,
like,
I
well,
mean-
you tried, but we're not gonna
Well-
have any clawback for
Well,
you. Like, it's
you're
your
gonna have the same,
liability.
you have the same clawback that you had before. So let's say somebody didn't do the property tax abatement, right? That whole abatement. Let's say that they pulled the 10% from us. What do we do?
The property tax abatement, they don't get their abatement.
But
Like, that's easy to
what's
do.
the process? It's not quick. What's the process? It's not, like you just said, oh, they don't get
Well,
it.
we would come to the committee,
Yeah,
and
Come
come
to
to
the-
the
you can for the pilot, but like, you
Right.
can do that.
And
If
you
it's
can-
a sales tax, we can't
There's
go
nothing we
back.
can't go back.
So what you can do though, is you can send them a notification saying, hey, you were supposed to get 10%, this is what you got for it. And you could go back to them and say, you could be responsible for this. Now, I can tell you this, this information that I'm giving you, I didn't just pull it out of the sky. That's the same thing that's been done in Westchester. So they have a few different benefit packages that you can do. And there is a set aside with mortgage tax and sales tax. And I asked that same question, how do we enforce it? Because once you give it to them, it's gone. And they said, well, listen, we do it the same way. We send them a letter saying, hey, you're in default, this is what you need to have. And they said, well, be honest, this gentleman that I talked to during his tenure, we've never had anybody, once we informed them, you need the 10%, not unwind the 10%. He said, what would we do? We probably would take legal action against them and try to go after them for some of it. And but most developers are not going to want to deal with it for 10%.
I want to hear what.
Yeah, I'm gonna talk about number one, so if you want to
Yeah.
finish number two?
Yeah, no, number one.
Number one, as I read this, here's what it looks like happened. You went to 20% and project stalled. So if you want to get those projects going again, you need to go back to 10% temporarily. And the word is temporary. I don't think it makes you look like you're incompetent, I really don't. I think it makes it look like you went from 10 to 20 and everything stopped. So starting it again,
We're gonna be
So,
going with the housing study, get more.
and the housing
facts
study will then
Right.
let you, and I would use the word refine,
Mhm.
what your policies really need to look at. I mean, that's just my inexperienced look at this. I mean, you guys have a whole lot more experience than I do, but when I look at it, if this came to my table as a superintendent of schools, and I wanted to get something done, and I did something, and everything stopped, I would know if I want to start it again, I gotta go back.
I have to ask the question to staff, because
Well,
they're basically the folks who are out there on the front line. It's a two-part question. How many people had an application in the queue before before the study was approved, that now they have to adhere to this new criteria? And then, what number makes it more effective for you to do your job? 10% or 20%?
So conversations had been had, but to an application in the queue, there was one
There's one.
Before we change the.
before we changed the
Yeah,
policy.
and the thing that I've told Robin this before is you don't know what projects are not going to get built and are going to get built, right? If benefits are there,
They'll come.
smart people are going to take advantage of it, and they should, and they should. And some of the projects that we're talking about are going to get done anyway.
So,
And to your point, if you think saying to someone, give us 10%, we'll give you sales and mortgage tax, that seems totally reasonable to me. And the thing I like about it is, at least if you're a developer and you've been looking at a project in the last 5 years and it was at 10%, you could still get benefits because you were planning on 10%. That's where I was thinking 10%, Robin. So in other words, if I was thinking of building an apartment building and I had these benefits built into my model, and all of a sudden it's like, oh, it goes to 20 and now my model doesn't work anymore, at least I could still get benefits and keep the 10% for the model that I built. And I think it opens up things a little bit for people. And I'm not so worried about enforcing it, because I think enforcing anything we do is difficult. It's just not.
See, I lose sleep over enforcing it. So
Yeah,
Right.
that makes us nervous.
Right,
like,
it's difficult.
you
You're
know,
So,
right.
but you're saying I'm not worried about it. We are very worried about
Because
it.
we have to
No.
report to the state, and when we don't follow through with something to the state, it's like a red flag for them, of like, you're saying you're doing it, and you're not following through though, like, that keeps us.
And when I say I'm not worried about it, I'm very worried about it. I'm just not, I don't think it's gonna become an issue with developers that come in on big projects and they sign saying, we're gonna give you 10% affordable set aside. They take the benefit and then they don't do it. That's fraud. And I think that is not something.
It's fraud with no punishment.
Right.
Not necessarily though.
What is the punishment?
Well, the punishment is you're gonna serve them a notice saying, hey, you're in default. And at
But
that point.
default of benefits that they've already.
Right, and you could be liable to pay the benefits back.
How?
Can't you do
That's
it, can't you do
We
a
don't, there's
clawback?
no mechanism of
No.
like us
In
collecting
our
that money
language
back and
of our
sending it
policy,
to the
we
state.
can't.
There's not really a way to do that. It's sales tax.
so there's so much
Yeah, right, yeah.
that you can do, and it's gonna be incumbent upon staff to do it. There's all types of ways
Yeah.
to basically make sure that they do what they're supposed to do. Now, you can say, okay, because of this, we expect you to bond for the amount give us a bond, a surety bond for the amount of results of this sales, of this benefit that we're gonna hold until you meet your full
do that.
compliance. So you can do that, but that's more work for you guys. There's gonna be a more cost to the project.
I'm not
Then-
afraid of the work, I'm,
Yeah, but then, how?
That's
but-
obvious.
But then the other part is, how much, what's the difference between, I mean, I don't think we did the math on this. What's the difference between 10% and 20% in dollars and cents? When we went from 10 to 20, how much more money are we receiving? I mean, I don't think we did that math. So what's the benefit to the organization? What's the pros and cons there?
Between 10 and 20?
there is no,
It's just
there's
methodology.
no
It makes-
benefit to
Like, when
Comida.
you've got a pilot and a sales and mortgage reporting tax, we're in a relationship with these people for 10 years or however long the pilot is. It's a
Right.
very like systematic,
No,
easy way to
pilot,
monitor
and
the
we don't have
project.
any way of.
Right, when you
monitoring.
just got sales tax, we only have a relationship for 2 years, but we still need to monitor this project for 10 years or whatever we've agreed to. That becomes a little bit more cumbersome, and that includes having to make sure that they send their things in, and if they don't, we have to like reach out to them. There's a lot of work that goes into monitoring a project, and when we have no clawback for one, that if they don't, the question is it worth our time and our money to actually have to keep monitoring the project?
So what you're saying is maybe just give sales and mortgage tax with no abatement?
Yes, and then pilot, we'll keep it at 20%. You want all three, you gotta give us 20%. But if you just want sales and mortgage recording tax, it's an easy, clean deal, we can do that one, no set aside.
So walk me through, and it's just ignorance, I'm not asking to give you a hard time, I just wanna understand. In the hang up is enforcement, right? That's what the concern is? Cause if they come in and agree to a set aside of 10%, we handle mortgage and sales tax, you're worried about they don't do it.
We have to show on our end that we've done something. If we know somebody didn't follow the rules, we have to do something, and us turning a blind eye to it, or
Yeah.
not doing it, or not following through, that's not good for Comida's reputation, and staff, we take it very seriously to make sure projects comply.
Yeah.
So to have one that we know isn't complying, that we're not doing something with, or not clawing back on, I don't think it's good for anybody's reputation to like have something that we're.
So I wanna ask you this question, how many projects have we actually pulled a tax abatement on?
The one you just did.
Which one?
What do you mean pulled it, like terminated it?
Yeah, they had a property tax abatement and we terminated it.
The one for 587 LLC that you just did for the local labor violations.
Okay, and how long were
We
you?
had done two other, actually, let me take that back, we had done two others earlier, it was, I think it was lack of pilot, they weren't making their pilot payments, and both of those, at the city's request, asked to be reinstated. And we did.
Right around the corner, you did.
Yeah, so I remember the one we just did, I don't remember if we did any previous to that.
You did South.
And the, WBS.
Yeah, South
yeah,
Newman,
Hawkeye.
right there,
Mm-hmm,
yeah, so,
yeah.
yeah.
So at that point, they went back on the tax rolls and they didn't get it. But, and they kept the mortgage and sales tax.
Correct.
Got it.
Oh,
And in those, we did not even claw back any benefits,
there are others, Citygate was a big one.
right?
And,
Good point, yeah.
yeah, so, no, I've said
Been there, done that.
Yeah, so, no, there's teeth, but how do you bite? And how do you use that teeth? With the staff that you have.
Well,
I mean, we can create all types of different rules, but I think the brain trust are these two and Rachel. And you guys have these reports that you have to do. It takes you 3 months to do that report. And you have to get that into the the New York State comptrollers and the authorities, you know, and make sure that you're meeting all those criteria. And if we're putting another layer into that for you, I mean, how do you make sure that you're in compliance and then do all the work in regards to, you know, making sure that the development end of COMIDA is getting done?
Why can't we just create a clawback? Well, you know, that's our best way of, you know, if they're not meeting their requirements, then we have some way of enforcing. Then they would be part of our pilot review, although it's not a pilot.
So what
Our annual review.
What Robbie was gonna say is that the study would probably give us all that information.
Number one, yes.
Well, the study isn't gonna give you how to claw back.
Yeah, no, but it'll give you best practices, and what you would see from
They feel
the
like
study.
they've got responsibility, but they have no way of.
But we have the capabilities to claw back on the real property tax abatement. We do not have the capabilities to claw back on the sales and mortgage tax only, because we are out of the project once it's built.
So why don't we make that happen? It's part of our agreement with them.
I personally don't know how to do that.
So that's making
Yeah.
our agreement and relationship with them, as opposed to 2 years, it's 10 years.
Sure, why not? Would they
I
still be?
mean, we'd have to ask Rachel
Yeah.
logistically, like, how to put teeth in it and make it work.
And then what is the, okay, then you all have to come up with, what is the penalty? What are you doing? Like, what are you doing?
Well,
You know, in year 2 is it this, and then in year 10 is it this, and then what happens in year 11 when we are out of it? I mean, that's for any discussion with any real property tax abatement, what happens when we are out of it?
well, you're out of it. When you're out of it, you're out of it. It's a 10-year pilot. I can
Right.
tell you that most of these things that you do, in 10 years, are gonna do whatever they wanna do.
Exactly.
So,
So
which we
that-
know that going into it. I mean, if you think this stuff's gonna go on in perpetuity, you're,
Oh, right,
right?
right,
None of us are thinking clearly, right?
right.
So,
They don't want it to be.
right. So I think if there's a way we can come up with, and I don't think it's that complicated. I think if it's however many years we make it for, all right, we're gonna give you mortgage and sales tax, and you know, if we agree on 10 years or 7 years, or whatever the number is, you say, okay, it's, how much did you get? All right, it's 10 years, you got $100,000 in abatement, it's 10,000 a year. So if you pull the 10% in year 8, you could be liable to pay us $20,000 back. Or if you pull it in year 7, you could be liable to pay $30,000 back. But I think anything that we do, you should have some teeth in it. And I don't think it would be that hard to do. Now, look, I'm not an attorney, but I'm just thinking out loud. And if Rachel could come up with a way that we could put teeth into that, and then there's a 10%, which, right, it keeps the path that we're on, that we were on before, and they can get some benefit out of it.
I don't think it does keep you on your path that you were on before, because I think you wouldn't see projects again.
So,
You what?
I don't think some of these projects in the pipeline would come.
so,
Why?
If they have to do 10% on top of, for just sales and mortgage reporting tax, if they have to do 10%, I don't think.
And then be in a relationship with us for 10 years?
what happened to the one that was that you already had the application on? Do they have to do 20% now?
What project was that?
It was a Pittsford,
Gunfield.
Barn Bazaar building that they're gonna tear down in Pittsford.
Okay.
So-
And that application, I didn't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry, that application was for the 10% with everything?
Before the 20%.
It came in before the 20%.
Right.
So
So it was already in
So
there.
we're not making them do 20%.
I don't know what you're making them do. They would like to come back to our board, and they're planning to come back in November for sales and mortgage tax only.
Yeah. So.
That's their plan,
So,
Yes.
so.
is to come back for sales and mortgage tax only.
And
So
an
let
outside
me
is
ask you a
another
question.
one.
Why?
To Rhett's point, if we wanted to do it, can't we do it? The way it's written now? With the 20% the way it is?
That's the number 2, yeah.
Wait, do what? I'm sorry, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Do
Do
what?
just sales and mortgage reporting tax
So let's
with
say
no,
that-
no abate, with no set aside.
Let's say they came in front of us and said, hey, we would like a mortgage and sales tax abatement with no set aside. They could apply and they could come in front of us and we could approve it if we wanted to.
Yes,
Right, but
as
so
staff,
they're,
we hate
what do
sending
I
out-
tell them?
we
May
hate
or may
sending
not
out-
get approved?
We
Well,
don't,
what do you tell anybody that comes in? You don't, I mean,
I
there's no
say, I
guarantee.
make sure they follow our policy.
Well, but if they follow the policy, they're still,
Can we-
like DeMarzo,
can-
follow the
can-
policy. At first they didn't, then they did, and they still got denied.
Can we go back a little bit, please?
What?
I think if they had an application in, before we change it to 20%,
It's okay.
we need to allow them to come in at 10%.
Didn't officially, I mean, I don't know what you call come in.
for a property tax abatement
Absolutely.
and sales.
Yes,
But-
I mean, I think if we changed it, you know, and we didn't say, okay, we didn't give a grace period, we just changed it and effective this day, and they're working under
Different
this,
set of-
a different set of rules. And I think it's for anybody that's been doing that, has gone that far, under a 10%, and then we basically changed the rules in the middle of the game. I think it's unfair to them.
Well, if they had a formal application in, but I spoke down and they didn't, there was a discussion, but no application. Is that
I
correct?
had a draft.
But no application, correct?
I had the draft application.
Yeah, a draft application, if I give you a draft if I bring an application to you, and say, okay, this is your application, oh, guess what? You need to change this, this, and this to meet our criteria. And they're laboring under 10%, no, we're not being fair. I mean, I'm just telling you, we're not being fair at all.
And now they're planning on coming back with
No pilot. Because they need to get the thing built.
Yeah, but I just.
now they're planning on coming back for sales tax and mortgage tax with no set aside.
Correct.
Well,
I got it.
yeah, but I'm saying that we should give them the 10%, if they still wanna do it.
If they still want to pilot.
Absolutely, I mean, I think it's totally unfair.
Well,
I think
I
we
mean-
talked about that too, if they were already in the
Yeah.
pipeline.
Yeah,
I mean,
so.
we denied a Pittsburgh project at 10%. I wouldn't vote for it, I can tell you that. I'm not, we got sued. And then you're gonna go vote yes to, in the same town for a similar project? There's no way.
Is it because of the town, or is it because of the project? I gotta understand that.
What do you mean?
What I was told was they did not want a pilot for that project.
That they just want mortgage and sales tax?
And they were gonna build it at market rents. There was not gonna be any
Well, you know,
set
I
aside
think.
at that project, where that is.
So, okay,
Which project?
So-
are we talking about?
That's the barn
So-
bazaar.
so
That's right, right.
Okay, sorry.
So
I live
I
across
guess
the
the
street.
thing that we need, the thing that we need to discuss is, are we okay giving any project mortgage and sales tax with no set aside? And if we're okay with that, and you think that'll promote growth and give the developers, then I think we keep the 20% if you wanna come off the tax rolls, and we could leave mortgage and sales tax for people coming in for just any project, but doesn't mean we have to approve it, but at least you can come in for it.
The other part of that I want to add is the income, is the rent limits. Like, we would not, I know what the rent limits are, and when we put them in our spreadsheet that shows 80 to 120, which is what workforce housing is, it falls in those ranges.
Right,
It's not above 120.
It's not
And
luxury
it's
housing.
not, like, we wouldn't even
Yeah.
consider talking to someone who came in with rents above that.
So what were the rents? Do you know what they are?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Ballpark?
I know that they did come in on 120 or under.
Yeah.
Can you give me an idea, like, what does it look like? Cause I don't,
It goes by number of people in the
Yeah.
household, do you have that sheet?
We have a spreadsheet, hold on, sorry, I didn't even bring that. I just did the exercise of figuring out what the rents are for
Sure.
because HUD only goes up to 80%, because it's truly
That's,
affordable.
that's, yeah, and
So
that's
the
like
new
below
bus-
Right,
poverty,
right,
that's
right,
yeah.
So
okay.
this workforce housing is 80 to 120, and we had to actually calculate that based on 30% of someone's income being
yeah, so,
set aside for housing. So I have all that.
Yeah, if you just give me an idea what those rents look
Yeah.
like. So,
One second.
Allow stall.
so are we, that's the question, are we, if we're okay with giving mortgage and sales tax, which doesn't hurt
Where?
our
I'm
property tax base,
blanking on where this is.
right? And,
Let's do
and
it
a
all
project,
down,
and a
right.
project comes in and we can promote those people, and then we can still say no if we don't like the feel of it. Cause at the end of the day, right, Robin, am I right? I mean, we're not just a rubber stamp. So
Right.
if a project, cause if we are, then you don't need us. You guys can handle the
Yeah,
applications and
no.
let's eliminate a lot
Always
of,
say no, yeah.
right? So they could still bring a project and if we don't like it, we could say no to it.
Mhm.
But does that encourage everybody now to come in
Or just
that would not,
mortgage
maybe not
instead.
have come in before? Is that gonna encourage everybody that's doing anything, regardless of whether they even thought of coming for it? Now, why not?
Potentially,
Come in for it.
but then you're gonna get your housing
But you
built.
will get housing, right?
But you're gonna get a lot of it built anyway, but I think, that's why I suggested the 10%, you know what I mean? That's why I thought at least 10%, because if I had in my head and I'm a developer,
right,
I'm okay with 10%, I would still be okay with 10. I would rather be okay with 10% and get something rather than nothing. Because I mean, I don't think 10% is that impactful, to be honest with you. Because I looked at all of our projects that we have, and I did what the financial impact would be if I did 10% affordable. It was de minimis. It was,
that's, Norm. He's supposed to leave, I think, for some other meeting, and I said, oh, can't you stay until we make these improvements? And
Yeah, right.
Because the last governance committee meeting, we didn't
Right.
make any appropriate changes, and so this is gonna be a vicious cycle here. But I think what we've talked about, if we could put words behind that.
So if you look at this sheet in your packet that has the yellow highlights, which
Yeah.
takes,
The last page,
yeah,
yellow.
and what the decisions
I'm
are.
gonna call and tell them I'm gonna be late for this, they just gotta wait for me.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
I had to do the same thing.
Our business is,
Oh, okay.
You know, I think the one thing that I hear about the pilot and the effect it has on the taxpayers, they need to be considered in some way, shape, or form, instead of having a developer come in and knowing that they're gonna make more money than they need to. There's gotta be some sort of middle ground there. And I think that's kind of what I'm hearing from Joe.
Well, especially if the rents are more than what the median income can even afford. I mean, if you're building these luxury apartments and you want a tax abatement, you know, it doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, you're not helping who we need to help, which is senior citizens and low income. I mean, in the housing, in real estate, those are the people that are struggling right now. The seniors trying to get into ranches that can't get into reasonable priced ranches. And, you know, young people or low income can't get into anything, they might as well forget it.
What's the reasonable price
There'll
range?
never be enough ranches, I think.
Price range as far
For a
as,
ranch.
oh, I mean, there's, Henrietta Ranch is like 1,000 square feet are selling over 250.
Huh?
Yeah,
ask the realtor.
It was
She knows.
built to
Yeah.
225 a foot at least.
oh yeah, there's,
least.
I just showed a ranch in Lima,
Lima, out there,
3 bedroom, 1 bath. It was 1,300 square feet, a partial
These are the
basement,
rent limits, right?
and it just sold for 300
huh?
in Lima.
Very expensive.
We're not talking Pittsburgh, we're talking Lima.
Well,
Livingston County's
I mean,
not a
you
bad place.
can't, and that's the hard thing, I have people call me and they're like, we wanna buy a house, and I kind of like, I don't laugh, but I wanna chuckle when I hear what they qualify for and how much they wanna spend, and I'm just kinda like, honestly, I can't
I'm
help
just
you.
trying to focus on the
There's
problem.
nothing I can find for you in that price point, unless you wanna go in the city. I mean, Greece now is at least getting a little more, you know, those small tiny homes there where Kodak Park used to be and stuff, but.
well,
Okay, so back to the subject at hand, the current housing policy. We wanted to walk through that,
okay.
and, but that includes the real property tax abatement. And what we're trying to say is we will award
I got you.
benefits
All right, buddy, thank you. I gotta run, but thank you.
to those that are only going to then receive sales and mortgage tax income only. And I don't think we have that in this policy, current policy, right?
The current policy applies 20% set aside to whatever benefit you choose from us.
Anything, right?
Anything, yes.
Right.
So the way it's written now, even if somebody came in and wanted mortgage and sales tax, they'd have to get 20%.
Yeah.
And you're saying there's no teeth in it,
Correct,
right, to get it?
yes.
Okay.
Is that something we're happy to move forward with?
I think you, to Lisa's point, I think you open yourself up to giving away a lot of mortgage and sales tax, county income that you probably would have gotten. But I like the fact that it doesn't hurt the tax base, so I like that. I like the fact that you're giving developers something that,
They wouldn't otherwise ordinarily.
right, you're giving developers something, you're probably taking pressure
An
off of,
enticement to go
you're
ahead
probably
and build.
taking, some pressure off where it's being applied and, so, but again, I think it's much less impactful to middle class and lower income people that are paying property tax than if you did it, than if you just gave the property tax abatement,
Right.
So, so I think that's better, right?
The 5 that we would lose, what kind of projects are those?
Oh. Where's that
Because
document?
I know we've talked about several for the November project that are just.
We have 2 housing projects that would like to be on our agenda in November. And we've told them they have to go through the 2 cycles. So in November would be an introduction and acceptance of the application.
Right.
Then we would schedule the public hearing beginning of December, and then you would approve it in December.
Which ones are they? It's the Barn Bazaar, right?
Mhm.
And then what's the other one?
Are you ready for this?
Yeah, the Marzone? Yeah, I'm sure,
Which one is
I'm
that?
sure.
And now,
The Pittsford Canal Side Project.
It's coming back.
Yes.
Of course it is.
And what?
That came out of the blue.
we
We had no idea.
What do they want?
Sales and mortgage tax only.
And no set aside.
Oh, shucks. I'm not gonna be here for that meeting.
Next, in 2 weeks? December? Or
Is
no?
it December, November?
Which one are you not here for?
I told you I have to be in Albany
Which one?
on the 19th, right?
For November?
Yeah,
is that our board meeting date?
I think it's the 19th. Yeah, so
Robin, can I ask a question? Did this come from our last meeting?
No.
Doesn't,
Can I have that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
don't we usually get this after a meeting so that we talked about?
Nothing's been changed.
No?
Right now, the housing policy stands as it was approved in
Yeah, it was
June.
the last page of my packet when I printed it.
Was it? I didn't get it. I printed this.
No, it wasn't.
Oh, yeah, it is. It is here. Oh. Yeah, there it is. Yeah,
Well, here, if you want it in yellow.
prettier.
It's better.
Thank you. So this is the way it's written now,
No,
correct?
this is not. This is what we're kind of like, is like our talking points, if
Okay.
you will.
Our proposed.
Do we have a copy of the current policy?
I have the current policy right here. And it addresses those 3 things that are highlighted.
Thanks. Karen. So this is what we just passed, right?
In June.
Yeah.
And as a
So we
result of
have
this,
to include a provision for these folks that are just coming in for sales and mortgage tax only.
And that's what this is, to try to give them something.
Try to do that.
and as a result of this policy, there's stalled projects.
Correct.
And how many?
We've heard of 7.
Okay.
But,
But
and
there
we
were-
actually know that those 7 have stalled because of, do we know that
That's
for?
what they're saying.
Well, that's what they say, but you
You
don't.
don't know.
Right.
You don't know.
Well, like the
But they are
Marzos
stalled.
project, there's,
They're
I mean,
not one of those 7.
They have an office in Pittsburgh renting apartments, right now,
Who's that?
at the Marsville project.
Riverside Hotel too is, I thought they were.
Yeah, that's actually the third one, but that's
A whole different
a
animal.
whole different
Yeah.
animal.
Why are they held up, the hotel?
They're not held up, it's actually on our November agenda.
Oh, it is,
Mhm.
okay, I thought you said that,
No, no,
she
we
was
have
saying.
three.
It's a different,
We have three good projects on the
Different
November
ball.
agenda.
it is, don't know.
Okay, so what we're talking about is requests that come in after these. I mean, these are already going to be step one, come in, tell us about your project, and so they would be on their way, those three. But without the property tax.
Right.
Basically, yeah,
The two of them, yeah, not that you can't, the hotel is a,
right.
you can't
Different.
put that in the same bucket.
Are we prepared to approve any of this?
I think there's a real benefit to getting projects going. That's the only, my 2 cents would be the only way I would add.
Well,
That's where we're coming from right now.
well, listen, I get it, that there's pressure we're trying to relieve and there's, right, right, I get it.
So did they just point blank say, we're not gonna come before the board? I mean, why wouldn't they, you know, it's flexible enough that.
Well, no, they're saying they're not gonna give 20%.
That's-
They're not gonna give a 20% set aside, so instead of a 20% set aside, they said, well, what if you just give us mortgage and sales tax and we'll build them as is? Which,
That's a pretty good
kind of-
solution.
they're both gonna get built anyway, it's just a matter of, and I don't think we should look at these policies just for those projects. I
Oh,
think-
agreed, absolutely,
right,
no.
Right, it's just not what we should be doing.
Agreed, and I think the timing is just very coincidental.
Right.
Yeah, and I think, well, I don't know about that, I think the timing is,
Well, one of them, we had no idea was even looking for benefits, so, came out of the blue.
Can we all
Which one?
just not show
Yours
up?
was- I had no idea that was
oh, yeah.
So,
on the docket.
I knew they were coming.
I think,
We didn't,
Yeah, I knew they were coming back.
I think we should be very, very careful right now.
Very careful.
Very, very careful right now. And I'm not prepared to vote on any of this right now. Any of it.
Yeah, I think we wait for the
So
study.
stay where we are.
I think we
I-
should wait for the study and,
I think we need to be very, very careful. And I'm not prepared to vote on any of this right now. I think what we have in this document right here is what we move on with.
Will what?
Is what we move on with.
what we already have.
I just think what we're talking about right now, if we change it, we're opening ourselves up.
Yeah, I agree.
We're in
I
trouble.
agree.
I'm sorry, because
So, but the three projects we've talked about for November would still move forward, correct?
I don't know, because they don't, the way they've been submitted, they don't qualify under your policy right now.
So we wouldn't
so,
probably bring them to you.
so the way they're submitted, they were submitted under this policy. This is our policy right here. It hasn't changed. They had no indication that it was changed. It didn't.
Right, so they can come and
so
it's a
come-
2-meeting cycle, they can plead their case to you.
So we have to be, I'm gonna say it for the last time that I'm gonna leave, we have to be very, very careful. We have a policy.
So is there a motion to that effect?
No, you don't, you're not changing anything.
Exactly, but that was what was the question that was brought before the board, is should we change our policy
I move that we keep the policy as
as
is.
is? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, any other comments, questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
And at that, I have to leave right now. So I'm sorry, I just,
Yeah,
I'm just,
Project came in. And they applied
it's
with no
more
set
work
aside.
is required.
I
And we
need
could
a lot
decide to
more
give
work.
them that if we
and
wanted to.
I think so, we
I
have
need
to look
Rachel
at that.
here when we discuss this.
This is what it says right now, for projects
I'm-
receiving
I'm-
sales and use tax and/or
We do.
you have to
Trust
comply
me.
with 20%
Yeah, I only look
60 to
at,
80%
where I
for 10
live, there's a
years.
project called Dunwood
That's how it's
Green.
written right now.
They
So
built
I don't even know if you
170
will even
apartments, and
entertain
they
a
sold
project
out,
that
like,
doesn't have a set
Right.
aside
immediately.
Right.
for sales and
So,
multi
It's
tax
unbelievable.
Well, the way
So
my
of this
interpretation of
project
this
by,
is, the
Bill
is a
Barn
full
Bazaar,
Yeah.
the
That's not
demand
what
has
it
gotta
says.
be.
That was not what was approved in June.
The project receiving sales tax.
Do you know where Clover and Jefferson Road
Agency will monitor compliance with sales
meet
tax 10 years.
in Pittsburgh, right across from the shop in
Partial
YMCA?
tax, the agency will monitor
It's almost hard to see.
And I was going.
Are we done with the
Because
meeting?
it's, yeah, and in fact, they
And they did a
put fencing
big
around the
little-
entire building.